Wiring. So I was reading something about what a guy did with his Mopar electrical system. But I got a question. This is 14 gauge wire. Would you run your welder on that? I wouldn't, because you're looking for disaster. So he came up with this thing where he's disconnecting his ammeter and connecting the two wires together because of fear of overloading the electrical system. Well, that's where my question about the alternators in a previous video came up. These old Mopar electrical systems, like this one, ran with a 35 amp alternator. And when you start hooking up power amps for stereos and extra lighting, fog lights and stuff like that are really high, they take more amperage than a stock light would. These LED things and all this other stuff that a lot of people are putting on their cars today. What do you think is going to happen? It's if you have that much of a draw on your electrical system, I mean, anything you turn on, once the car starts, you turn your headlights on, you turn your fan on for your defroster, you turn on the radio. It tells the regulator to send more power through it. So it draws more from the alternator. And I think a lot of times people, when they, their headlights are dimming because of, that and other reasons. And they kind of make it sound like Mopars are notorious for that, but it's all how you have your systems hooked up. Are you overloading the system? On the back of the circuit board behind your gauges is where your ammeter hooks in, and you have two heavy wires going into it. And if you see that it's hot and it's burning, it's getting all black around it, you're drawing way too much. And a lot of these things, maybe you'd probably be better off to run a separate system. But you have to keep in mind that it's also telling the regulator that it needs more power because the battery is using more voltage, and your current flow is higher than normal. But what do you want? What do you want a classic car for, or just a street car for? That's what happened to my car, and that's why I had to rewire the entire car. A lot of this stuff that people are adding to their cars, it's really, do you really need it? If you're out in your hot rod or your muscle car or your classic car, do you seriously need uh, a huge power amp? It's going to take like 200 amps to run your stereo. I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea on an older car. It's just my opinion, guys. It's just my opinion. I had a lot of parts in my electrical system that were burnt out because the kid that had the car before me hooked on all this stuff everywhere. He had splices. He was using those. What do you call those things? Uh, those little connectors you fold and have Scotch connectors, I think they're called. and all they do is they break the insulation on the wire and probably take out a couple of strands in the process if you put them really tight, and you're changing your, you just put a lot more resistance in that wire. um, and I'm really big on doing, having electrical right, because I watched a friend's car burn years ago. He put an amp in it. He put a stereo in it. It was a gorgeous 1970 Challenger RTSE 446 pack car. The car was absolutely gorgeous. And we were hanging out downtown at our spot where we always hung out. And right out of nowhere, there was just a there was just smoke everywhere, and he burned that car. And that was a pretty sad night when we were hanging out. Um, One of the other things is this. These are two that I had to replace. One was from a charger that oh, there's three of them here. No, there's two. One was from a charger. One was from this Barracuda. Um, with all the excess hooked into the light circuit, it burnt out these signal switches. And these aren't cheap anymore. You used to be able to get these cheap. Not anymore. Not anymore. I think they're pretty close to $100 now. And if that's all you got to do, you're lucky. Because if it gets through there and it starts a fire, a lot of these electrical fires, you're not going to put them out. You're not going to put them out. Even if you have a small fire extinguisher in your car, chances are you probably won't. As long as that battery is feeding, it's going to keep on feeding the fire. I just made a list. Some of the stuff that again, everything in my videos is my opinion. It's the way that I do it. It's the way that I've done it for a lot of years. All your switches, your headlight switch, your dimmer switch on the floor, your windshield wiper switch, everything. Make sure that all the connections, all of the brass connections are clean. Because if they're not, and your systems aren't working right, it's going to be, you're adding more resistance to the circuit. Your bulkhead connectors. Make sure that they're clean. If you have to, just get some electrical contact cleaner, a little brush, get in there and clean them out. It's not something that you have to do all the time, but it's kind of sort of preventative maintenance. Try not to make any modifications to your harnesses. Like I said, a lot of people love these little Scotch clip things that you squeeze together so you can draw power from someplace that some people don't even know where they're getting it from. They just know the wire's hot. Clip locks, Scotch locks, whatever they're called. You're better off to run a new circuit with circuit breakers. You could just make something small under the hood, way up under the dash, in the glove box, whatever, but just have power to run to it. A separate line from your battery. I would put a fusible link in it, as well as the circuit breakers, so you could have a fusible link before it, and then you'll have some kind of protection after it. That way you're sure to shut off your power. A lot of these kits, I'm not going to name any names, but a lot of these wiring kits that you got, the do-it-yourself ones, they're not, in my opinion, I think they're a big time-consuming pain in the butt. And there's no fusible link on them, not that I know of. And your fusible link is something that you need. You absolutely need that, because you will burn your car. It'll be gone. And the fusible link is a very, very important part of your electrical system. The headlights, like a lot of these modern headlights, these halogens and stuff, sometimes they're a little too much. And how often do you really drive your car at night? How far do you take it? Uh, are you in places where you need, all that extra lighting? I'm sure anybody could, but it's also, it's something that's making your electrical system work harder, in my opinion. I haven't put a meter on anything, but I see what other people do, and there's nothing wrong with the factory stuff. Those seal beam headlights are fine, especially if you're just in town. You have street lights. Everything is lit up. Uh, but the halogens will draw a lot more than your seal beams will. Um, and the connections, all the connections on the car, again, check them all. All the fuse clips in your fuse box, make sure they're clean. You can get in there with uh, with a file, or you can get in there with one of those. They're little cones. They're like an abrasive cone that you could use you could use it on a drill, or you could use it on a Dremel or whatever. They have a stud, and then the uh, abrasive cone goes over it, so it'll fit in stuff. I mean, you don't want to go crazy on it. You don't want to break them or wear them right down to nothing, but just enough to clean them off. A little electrical contact cleaner and a quick, 1, 2, 3, done. Just so that you do have a good connection there. Any of these connections that are bad, you're just causing more resistance everywhere, and it's not bad to check them once in a while. The dielectric grease, you can put some on there. Don't put a lot on it, because that it will stop any current from flowing. If you got a big glob of it on there, and you don't have any metal to metal contact with your plugs, it'll stop your current flow. Uh, if it doesn't stop it, it's going to interrupt it here and there. Uh, um, and Again, the ammeters are fine as long as you're not overloading your system. You know, once you start getting over 35 amps on things, of course your headlights are going to dim. Of course, your signal lights aren't going to work right. It's just, it's one thing connected to another, and don't catch your cars on fire, guys. Don't do it. Uh, I like to I like to preserve all these old Mopars because that us guys, there's a lot less of us Mopar guys than there are of the other brand X's, and even back in the day there wasn't too many. But don't burn up your car by you want some high intensity lights, or you put stuff that you really don't need. In my opinion, again, in my opinion, it's just my opinion. But I don't need to be driving down the road. I want to hear my engine singing. I don't care about the radio. Um, but I was thinking about a friend of mine from way back. This is way back 1981, 1982. That Challenger, that was a horrible night. Horrible. I felt so bad for the guy. And I would really hate to see any of you guys going through that. I wouldn't want to go through it myself, but um, when you start making modifications to your harnesses, it's not good. Pull down your fuse box, if anything, and you have connectors on top of the fuse box. You'll have spades in there that you can plug into. So you'll have a fuse connection at least. But as far as the dimming, headlight dimming and stuff like that, if you're running too much, and you have bad connections, the connections are the worst. That's probably the biggest part of all of it is the electrical connections. If they're dirty, they're corroded. That's gonna give you a lot of problems. And putting a bigger alternator in for that is not what you need to do. You don't need to do that. You don't need to change your regulator. I know the new regulators are the electronic ones, and some people I guess are having problems with them because everything today is junk. But the old ones, if you can find the old regulators, the ones that you can adjust, you don't want to go crazy, but you can adjust them. So you get a little bit more, a little bit less. You go by the book, and you don't want you don't want your car to burn. I don't want your car to burn. I don't want my car to burn, and that's why I rewired the whole thing. And by the way, I used. I know there's other companies that do basically the same thing, but I used M&H. I had to get that through year one, but it was M&H wiring. The harnesses are fantastic. They're exactly like factory harnesses, just plug and play. That's what they like to call it, plug and play. But the only thing is on my Barracuda Fastback, the some of the connections I had to solder them and use some of the old stuff, like for my interior lights, the ones in the sail panels. I had to fabricate those from what I had into the harness. My map light. What else was there? The radio. I had it for the radio, but the map light, and when I had the automatic in the car, the light for the console. I don't know if there's anything else, but I guess can't have it all. I guess what they do is they give you the basics of what you need. And to me, it was money well spent for the electrical system. And if you do run one of those do-it-yourself kits that come with rolls of wire and connectors and all that stuff and circuit breakers and all that, please make sure you use a fusible link. Fusible link is very important. But that's all I wanted to say. Like I said, I was thinking about that friend of mine and what a sad night that was when his Challenger burned up. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope I gave you some kind of good input. And talk to you again soon. Bye now.